A Mother's Sacrifice and the Journey to Redemption. Hello, and welcome to Life Tells Stories, where each episode reveals powerful real-life narratives that inspire and move us. Today, we'll uncover the emotional journey of a single mother who sells her wedding ring to feed her children, only to see her past come knocking in the most unexpected way. Before we dive in, take a moment to reflect. Have you ever sacrificed something deeply meaningful to ensure the well-being of those you love? If this question resonates with you, then this story is sure to leave a lasting impression. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button so you never miss any of our inspiring, heartfelt stories. Sarah Mitchell's life in the heart of New Orleans is a study in contrasts. By day, the streets buzz with vibrant music, and at night, the city's lights dance on the waters of the Mississippi River. Yet, in a cramped apartment building on a quiet block, Sarah wrestles with challenges that feel far removed from the city's carefree rhythm. Once a hopeful dreamer, she is now a single mother of two, 3-year-old Tommy and 10-year-old Emily, determined to keep them healthy, sheltered, and safe. Financial hardship has a way of creeping into every corner of a person's life. Every time Sarah opens the fridge, she's reminded of how far her money must stretch. The simple act of grocery shopping becomes a constant exercise in prioritization. Milk or eggs, apples or bread, essential bills or a new pair of shoes for Emily. Yet, despite the endless obstacles, Sarah never allows despair to overshadow her love for her children. Each morning, she wakes before the sun rises, packing a modest lunch for Emily and humming lullabies to Tommy, fortifying herself with the single cup of coffee she can afford. Balancing 2 part-time jobs and occasional side gigs, she does her best to provide a sense of stability in a world that often feels anything but stable. Watching Emily grow up too fast weighs heavily on Sarah. 10-year-olds should be dreaming about art projects, new friendships, and fun weekends, not worrying about rent or whether they can afford next week's groceries. Meanwhile, little Tommy remains blissfully unaware of the full extent of their struggles. His innocence is a shield, but Sarah wonders how long it can last. She yearns to preserve that sweetness while also teaching both children resilience and gratitude. Every corner of their small apartment holds a story. The chipped paint in the bedroom is where Emily once taped her drawings to the wall. The scuffed kitchen tiles have felt the hurried steps of Sarah, rushing out the door to a double shift. Despite the worn-out furniture and constant worry, this place is filled with love. It's the only home her children have known, and Sarah is determined to protect it at all costs. When money grows increasingly tight, desperate times call for desperate measures. After paying the latest electric bill and realizing she has barely enough left for a week's worth of groceries, Sarah finds herself eyeing a small jewelry box tucked away in her dresser drawer. Inside lies her wedding ring, a delicate gold band set with a modest diamond, once a token of eternal love and brighter days. Looking at the ring, Sarah remembers the day it was slipped onto her finger. She recalls the overwhelming happiness, the promise of a future unburdened by hardship. But time has tarnished those hopes. Ethan Harper, her ex-husband, shows a different path that led him far from the family he once claimed to cherish. Sarah doesn't talk about him much, and while the ring remains a painful memento of betrayal, it also represents the life she once envisioned: a comfortable home, 2 incomes, and parents united in supporting their children. Now, however, the ring must fulfill a more urgent purpose. Each glance at its sparkles feels like a tiny jab at her heart, reminding her that sentimentality won't feed her kids. But deciding to sell it isn't simple. She wrestles with guilt, sorrow, and a sense of failure. Is it the right thing to do, or simply her only option? In truth, there's no alternative. The bills keep piling up, and her kids deserve a meal that can nourish more than just their bodies. They deserve a mother who isn't perpetually stressed and exhausted. Before leaving for the pawn shop, Sarah closes her bedroom door, takes the ring out, and slips it into her jacket pocket. The moment is loaded with memories, wedding photos, whispered promises, and plans of a future that never materialized. Yet, as her children play in the living room, she steels herself. Letting go of the ring may feel like letting go of the past, a past she no longer wants to mourn. Because now, her present is all about survival and providing for Tommy and Emily. Arthur Reynolds, the gray-haired owner of a modest pawn shop on a narrow side street, has seen just about everything come across his counter. From cherished heirlooms to trivial knickknacks, each item tells a story, though most are tales of desperation rather than joy. When Sarah walks in, he notices her hesitant expression and the anxious grip she has on her jacket. She quietly places the ring on the worn glass countertop. The gentle click of metal on glass reverberates through the silent shop, echoing the gravity of her decision. Arthur's eyes soften as he picks up the ring, carefully studying the delicate band and modest diamond. Despite his years in the business, he still feels a twinge of sadness whenever someone parts with something so emotionally charged. He offers Sarah a sum, explaining that, despite its genuine quality, the market for second-hand wedding rings isn't as high as one might hope. Sarah nods, swallowing the lump in her throat. She knows it won't fetch a fortune. It merely needs to cover groceries for a week or two. Yet, the reality of exchanging this personal treasure for a modest stack of bills tugs at her emotions. Arthur, sensing her internal turmoil, offers a kind word. "I hope this helps you and your children." It's a simple statement, but laden with empathy. Unknown to Sarah, Arthur has connections in the jewelry world beyond New Orleans. Recognizing the ring's craftsmanship and sensing it may have a poignant backstory, he discreetly arranges for it to be sent to a trusted jeweler in New York. He suspects there's more to this ring than meets the eye, though even he doesn't realize how far its journey will reach. Sarah leaves the shop clutching the envelope of cash, a swirl of guilt and relief battling within her. On one hand, she's accomplished her mission. She now has money for groceries. On the other, she feels the sting of severing a piece of her past, no matter how painful. As the rain begins to fall, she zips up her jacket and thinks about the meal she can now provide for her children. In her world, practicality must win over sentiment. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away in a sleek New York office, Ethan Harper reviews a stack of mail. He's now a well-known entrepreneur, lauded for his financial acumen, but his success stands on shaky moral ground. He once vowed to make a name for himself. Unfortunately, it came at the expense of his family. Amid the routine deliveries, a small padded envelope from a New Orleans jeweler catches his eye. Puzzled, he opens it, only to find the wedding ring he once gave Sarah. His heart constricts. Memories of their once happy relationship flash through his mind. Late-night planning of their future, the day they found out Sarah was pregnant, their daughter's first steps, the look on Sarah's face the day he walked away. He stares at the ring, feeling a pang of regret. He tries to remember the last time he spoke to Sarah or visited his children. Realizing the ring must have been sold, he wonders if she's in trouble or if she simply no longer wants anything to do with him. In that moment, Ethan acknowledges the gaping void he has left in his family's life. Shame floods him. He has neglected the very people who once trusted him unconditionally. After a sleepless night, Ethan resolves to fly to New Orleans. He contacts the jeweler who sent him the ring, gleaning enough details to point him toward the pawn shop and possibly Sarah's whereabouts. For the first time in years, Ethan prioritizes something beyond his empire of wealth. He no longer sees success and family as a conflict. Now, he must see if it's too late to rebuild the bridges he burned. His assistant, Jennifer, helps him arrange the trip. She sees a side of him she never expected. A man willing to trade boardroom power plays for personal accountability. As the private jet lifts off, Ethan feels the weight of his decisions. He left New Orleans to chase dreams, but now he wonders if the real dream was the family life he left behind. Ethan's return to New Orleans is marked by a swirl of emotions: nostalgia, guilt, and a cautious spark of hope. Gone is the starry-eyed newlywed who once saw this city as a playground for fresh opportunities. In his place is a man tempered by life's lessons, painfully aware of the mistakes he's made. When he finally locates the shelter where Sarah volunteers, he's both relieved and apprehensive. Stepping inside, he sees the lines of worry etched on Sarah's face, the determined focus in her posture as she helps organize donations. She spots him across the room, and her expression shifts from disbelief to guarded anger. There is no warm welcome, only the tense silence of unresolved conflict. Sarah's friend and the shelter's manager, Rebecca, steps between them, her protective instinct flaring. She demands to know why he's here, and Ethan explains, voice trembling slightly, that he wants to help. He doesn't ask for forgiveness. He asks for an opportunity to show he can contribute, that he can be part of the children's lives in some positive way. Despite Sarah's reluctance, the shelter desperately needs volunteers. Seeing no immediate harm in letting Ethan stack boxes or serve food, Rebecca allows him to stay. Sarah keeps her distance at first, wary of letting Ethan back into her world. Each time she glances at him helping other volunteers, the memories surge, reminders of the countless nights she spent alone waiting for him, the tears she shed when he stopped calling, and the heartbreak she felt each time she had to reassure Emily and Tommy that Daddy still loved them. Yet, amidst the tension, a small flicker of hope emerges. Sarah cannot ignore the earnest look in Ethan's eyes. While she's not ready to soften, she can't deny a part of her that longs for stability, even if it's offered by a man who once shattered her trust. Ethan meets Tommy for the first time since the child was a baby, and there's a strange, tender moment when father and son look at each other with innocent curiosity. It's not a perfect start, but it's a start nonetheless. Sarah's emotions swirl in a storm of conflicting feelings. On one hand, she resents Ethan for his absence, for leaving her to shoulder the burdens alone, for forcing Emily to grow up faster than she ever should have. On the other, she sees a sincerity in his recent actions that confuses her. Could he really have changed? Is it even possible for someone so fixated on personal ambition to rediscover the value of family? When she returns to her apartment after a day at the shelter, Sarah finds Emily quietly sketching in the corner. Emily's artwork, once filled with bright and hopeful scenes, now has a solemn edge. Sarah recognizes her daughter's unspoken longing for a complete family. Emily never mentions Ethan, but Sarah senses that questions brew beneath the surface. Why did he leave? Why hasn't he come back until now? Should she let him in? Tommy, on the other hand, is unburdened by detailed memories of Ethan. He's delighted by any positive attention and shows a child's unconditional wonder. One afternoon, Tommy mentions Dad with a gleeful innocence that simultaneously warms Sarah's heart and tightens her chest. She wonders how to protect Tommy from potential disappointment if Ethan fails them again. Ethan's presence also triggers regret and doubt within Sarah. She's questioned her own actions. Did she do the right thing by leaving or by cutting him out so completely? Could she have tried harder for the sake of the children? The truth is complex. When Ethan chose his career over family, Sarah felt that staying meant accepting neglect. She had to leave to preserve her own self-worth and to shield the children from heartbreak. Now, seeing him volunteer, help strangers, and attempt to reconnect with the kids stirs a cautious desire for reconciliation. Yet, self-preservation keeps her from letting her guard down completely. In the days that follow, Ethan finds gentle ways to form a connection with Tommy. It starts with small gestures, reading a picture book to him, pushing him gently on the worn swing set behind the shelter, or offering to watch him for a few minutes while Sarah manages tasks. Tommy's eyes light up each time Ethan arrives, curious about this new friend who seems to care so much. Ethan quickly learns that 3-year-olds can be wonderfully honest. Tommy asks him direct questions. Why do you talk funny? Noticing Ethan's formal tone. Or how come you were gone so long? Ethan's heart aches each time he's reminded of his absence, but he meets Tommy's questions with as much honesty as he can muster. He explains that he had to work far away and made some mistakes by not coming back sooner. While Tommy might not fully grasp the complexity, he seems content with the notion that Ethan regrets being away. Every shared moment is a building block in the fragile structure of trust. When Tommy bumps his knee on the playground, Ethan rushes over with concern, cradling his son's small frame. Sarah watches from a distance, uncertain whether to feel relieved or anxious. She can't deny the comfort in seeing someone there to help. Raising two kids alone has been exhausting, and for just a moment, she allows herself the luxury of imagining a co-parent, someone to share both joys and struggles. Emily, observant and mature for her 10 years, notices the shift. She sees Ethan's consistent presence and the way her little brother adores him. Still, Emily holds Ethan at arm's length, wary of letting him back in. She's seen how broken promises hurt her mom, and she's not eager to experience that pain herself. Nevertheless, there's a subtle softening in her gaze whenever she sees Tommy giggling in Ethan's arms. A small part of her wonders if maybe, just maybe, this time things could be different. One afternoon, as Tommy is playing a game of tag with other shelter kids in the courtyard, he tumbles awkwardly, landing hard on his wrist. Ethan hears the cry and rushes over, scooping Tommy into his arms. The boy's face is streaked with tears, and his wrist is already beginning to swell. Panic surges through Sarah as she realizes her child might be seriously hurt. Without hesitation, Ethan offers to drive them to the nearest hospital. In the back seat, Sarah holds Tommy close, whispering comforting words while Ethan navigates the busy New Orleans streets. The tension is palpable. Sarah's fear for Tommy mingles with an odd sense of relief that she's not alone in this crisis. For once, there is another adult to share the emotional weight. At the hospital, a doctor examines Tommy's wrist and confirms it's a minor fracture. They quickly set the bone and wrap his arm in a cast, instructing Sarah and Ethan on how to care for it. Throughout the ordeal, Ethan remains at Tommy's side, his calm reassurance helping soothe the boy's nerves. Sarah watches, torn between gratitude and lingering doubts. Still, seeing Ethan step up during a genuine emergency is a pivotal moment. It forces her to admit that he might truly want to be a consistent presence in their lives. The nurse mentions that they'll need a follow-up in a few weeks. Ethan volunteers to take time off to help, if Sarah agrees. Sarah is too emotional to respond immediately, but deep down, she feels her defenses waver. Part of her wants to accept every bit of support. Her heart and mind are weary of battling life's challenges alone. We'd love to hear your thoughts on how this emergency shaped Sarah's trust in Ethan. Share your views and experiences in the comments below. In the aftermath of Tommy's hospital visit, the bond between father and son seems to grow. This change extends beyond personal interactions. Ethan notices the dire circumstances of many families at the shelter. He sees parents balancing multiple jobs, uncertain living conditions, and a pressing need for more than just emergency support. Moved by these observations, he devises a plan. At a community fundraising event organized by the shelter, Ethan presents his idea: a scholarship and mentorship program aimed at helping struggling parents and young adults gain the skills they need to secure stable employment. He plans to partner with businesses in the region, leveraging his professional network to provide guidance, job opportunities, and internships. His voice trembles slightly as he speaks, aware that those in attendance view him with a mix of hope and skepticism. Sarah listens from the back of the room, her arms folded protectively. She can't help but be impressed by Ethan's approach. Gone is the self-centered mogul who only cared about rising to the top. In his place stands a man who seems genuinely committed to uplifting others. Still, a kernel of doubt remains. Is this a sincere, long-term commitment, or merely a flashy display of wealth and remorse? Volunteers and donors pepper Ethan with questions. How will the program be funded? What about long-term sustainability? In response, Ethan emphasizes collaboration with local businesses, nonprofits, and the community itself. He envisions a board composed of volunteers and beneficiaries who will keep the program grounded and accountable. While some remain wary, many attendees sense the authenticity behind his words. By the end of his presentation, a soft hum of cautious optimism fills the room. For Sarah, it's not merely about the scholarship program. It's about whether Ethan's consistent presence proves he wants to remain in their lives. Still, she allows herself a small glimmer of hope. If Ethan can follow through with this grand initiative, perhaps he can also follow through on a promise to be there for Tommy and Emily. A few days after the event, Sarah decides to let Ethan spend more time with the children. The tension between them hasn't entirely vanished, but they've reached an unspoken truce. Recognizing Tommy's newfound love for gardening, sparked by a few potted plants on their apartment windowsill, Ethan proposes creating a small garden in the shared courtyard behind Sarah's apartment. On a sunny afternoon, the four of them gather in the modest space. Emily, initially reluctant, brings along her sketchbook to document the process. Tommy is bursting with excitement, cradling a tiny seedling in his good arm, while his other arm remains in its cast. Sarah provides a few basic tools and seeds, her expression cautious yet undeniably touched by Ethan's initiative. Together, they break the hard soil, mixing in fresh compost, Ethan sourced from a local gardening store. Emily begins drawing the scene, Ethan kneeling beside Tommy, gently guiding his small hands. Sarah showing her children how to pat the soil down around the seedlings. The moment feels surreal, as if they're living a scene from a life Sarah once imagined but thought she'd lost. By the time the last seed is planted and the tools are set aside, the children are covered in dirt and giggling in the fading sunlight. The garden is small, just a few rows of colorful flowers and hardy vegetables, but it represents something far greater, the chance at a new beginning. As they gather around to admire their work, Tommy points to a tiny sign in the soil with his name on it, proud of his role in this little ecosystem. Ethan looks at Sarah, and she offers a tentative smile. They both recognize that trust isn't rebuilt overnight, but today they've planted seeds of hope for themselves and for a family that might just find a way to thrive after all. Sarah's journey, from the desperate act of selling her wedding ring to the cautious reintroduction of Ethan into her family's life, reveals the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. It underscores how sacrifices, even the most painful, often stem from unwavering love. While broken trust can feel irreparable, genuine change combined with consistent action can begin to mend even the deepest wounds. Observing Ethan's transformation reminds us that redemption is not about a grand gesture, it's about daily commitment. Whether it's rushing to the hospital to care for a child, volunteering at a shelter, or planting a garden with the family you once abandoned, redemption is earned through tangible proof of a changed heart. In this story, we see how building bonds requires patience and vulnerability, but the reward is immeasurable. The possibility of a family reunited and a future infused with hope. Here at Life Tells Stories, we believe that sharing such narratives can encourage those wrestling with similar conflicts, whether it's an absent parent seeking redemption or a single parent finding the strength to forgive. It's a reminder that life is rarely linear. It's a winding path filled with choices that can lead us back to the ones we love. If Sarah and Ethan's emotional journey resonated with you, please take a moment to subscribe to Life Tells Stories for more heartwarming and thought-provoking content. Don't forget to like this video and share it with others who may need encouragement or a gentle reminder that second chances are possible. We'd love to hear your own insights on family, forgiveness, and resilience in the comments section. Thank you for watching. Always remember, every life carries a powerful story, and it's in listening and sharing that we find hope, healing, and the inspiration to keep going. Until next time, stay strong, be kind, and never underestimate the power of love and redemption.